All right, so the topic of today, I don't know actually what we're going to talk about today, so I'm going to ask you, but let me just make sure I got everything up here. Let's see, and I also have it open on a different window just in case the chat doesn't work like I did that one time. So just one second. Okay, cool. All right, so I see a bunch of you already here. Let me move my camera, this webcam over. Welcome. Now I think there are a few of you that are new, so let me say hi to the new ones. Music Conductor 2016. I don't think I have met you before, so welcome to our video, our live lesson. Diego Ram and Vio Joe 11. I think the rest of you I recognize from before, so welcome back. Maybe I'm making a mistake here as far as who I. Okay, yeah. So. Let's get started. Last week I mentioned that we were going to talk about memory. So are you guys still okay with talking about memory, or is there another topic that you would like to discuss? I'm open to suggestions. I did prepare a lesson on memory, so I am also pretty flexible. Memory is a nice topic. Okay, why don't we start with memory? If you guys, I'll just watch the chat and see if you guys have any other ideas of what you'd like to talk about. But I'm here for you, so I want to make sure that it is something that you're interested in talking about. Now, how many of you have, or let's say from a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is I forget my music all the time during concerts, and 10 is I never forget. I always remember everything that I'm supposed to play. Where do you guys, how would you rate yourselves between 1 and 10? Okay, a 7. 7's pretty good. 7 to 8, all right. Anybody else want to weigh in? What do you feel like your memory between 1 and 10? How good is your memory? So I'm getting a 7 to 7 to 8. Maybe you guys could teach me a few things about memory. 6.5, okay. Haven't ever played concerts. Ooh, you are in for a treat. Nobody's driving. Welcome back. Thank you for returning. I hope you had a fun time last week, as I did. We are currently rating ourselves from 1 to 10, on 1 being that you regularly forget what you're playing, and 10 meaning that you never forget what you're playing during a concert, the music that you're playing. So you tell me, okay? Now, if it's not in a concert situation, what about if you've ever played for somebody in general? It could be a friend, it could be a family member. Did you have trouble at all? 1 to 10. Okay, you're a 10, so you never forget. That's good. I'm going to be drawing upon you for some help then, because we want to get I want to get everybody to as close to a 10 as possible. So I'm going to share some thoughts. Tell me, how do you memorize? What is 1 technique that you use? Could be here, in your fingers. It could be in your brain. It could be something that you recite to yourself, some like mantra or ritual or something. How do you memorize? What do you guys do to memorize? My question would be, how can you not memorize? Okay, score study, yep. So you look at the music. I guess practice develops muscle memory, very good. So you've already touched on 2 different ways that we memorize. One is through reading the music. Another is through your finger muscle memory. I think the sound of the music, plus I see the sheet music in my head, photographic memory, okay? You were very lucky nobody's driving, and I think that you are one of the very rare ones who can do multiples of these very well. And I think that's why you're able to give yourself a 10 out of 10. I believe you. I believe that you can. I also believe that many of you can do it. Diego Ram says, I listen to the music and try to feel it. Okay, very good. I'm not a good player. Lol. Okay. Fair enough. Sing the song in my head while I play. Very good. Okay, so now you're touching on the 3rd. And actually, I think all of you have mentioned each of the muscle memory. So muscle memory, reading the music, and hearing in your head. Those are the 3 that I use personally to memorize my music. Now, I'd actually give myself a 10 out of 10 because it's very rare that I ever forget anything. But I'll also tell you that each of these memories that I have, muscle memory, reading, and hearing in my head, every so often during a concert, one of those will just completely blank. I just completely lose it. Like, I got in my head and I suddenly have no idea what the next note is. Or I'm moving along and my fingers have no idea where to go next. Or I see it in my head and then I have no idea what I'm looking at next. Like, maybe I get things mixed up. Okay, let's see. I usually practice only a few bars at a time, so it doesn't take long until I remember it. Kind of just happens. Okay, so you do a progressive practicing. So we'll talk about how it is that you, like what the actual mechanics of practice are to memorize. I practice so much I end up memorizing. I mean, when you play something a million times, you end up remembering it. That is very true. My goal here, though, is that I don't want you guys to be spending more time than you need to memorize. I'd like you to be efficient in the amount of time you spend, okay? So tell me, what are the best ways that you have of hearing the music? Where do you go to hear the music? Do you go to YouTube? Do you go to the music library? Where is it that you go to hear your music? So I want to make sure you guys are aware of the vast repository of areas where you can go and listen to music, okay? YouTube, YouTube, YouTube. That's kind of the new thing, or rather the normal thing to do nowadays. When I went to college, I didn't have that luxury of YouTube, so I couldn't easily go and look it up. I know I'm not that old. I'm 30, so I've been out of school for several years. But YouTube is a very good place to go listen to music. Unfortunately, a lot of that stuff that you listen to is copyrighted, so I don't support. Well, you listen to the music on your own terms. I guess you can choose. I mean, sometimes I do too. So so that's a good place to go. Sometimes Amazon or iTunes. Okay, concert CDs. Yeah, very good. Okay, so you guys have. Does anybody feel like you don't have access to hearing music? Because I want to make sure all of you feel like you know where it is you're supposed to go or where you can go to hear music. You guys all comfortable with where it is that you're going to hear the music? And that it is good enough quality that it helps you to know what the music is supposed to sound like? I mean, YouTube is kind of, you take it or you leave it. If you have people that are playing it themselves, there may be mistakes in it, and you may be learning it wrong. So you have to be careful. Okay, yes? Yes, absolutely, yes. Okay, good. I think I'm comfortable with that as well, especially if you're finding violinists who are well known playing the music. Like me, no, just kidding. You should really focus on the people that are very famous these days. Got Gil Shaham, Hilary Hun, Itzhak Perlman, any of those guys. So any of them are fine. Okay, yes. Oh yeah, Milstein, Oistrakh, definitely, and Heifetz and anybody else that you can come up with. It is helpful for me to be alone while I listen to music or use headphones to concentrate. Now, let me tell you something. When you listen to music, you are actually practicing. I don't care what any teacher says, really. I mean, they're entitled to their opinion, of course. But I will argue that listening to music is a form of practice. So if you're sitting on your bed just listening to headphones, and it's a piece that you're actually learning, that's practice to me. Yeah. So if anybody argues that point, just tell them that I will argue that with them. If they want to argue with me over email, I'm happy to do that. If it's one of your own personal teachers and you feel like they disagree with that, send them to me and I'll have a chat with them, because there is not much you can do in the beginning of learning a piece that is better than just listening to it over and over and over again. Find multiple copies of the music, so listen to different people play it. Just listen, okay? You got MP3s on your phone. You've got, I don't even know if CD players are really even used anymore. You've got YouTube, okay? So, very first thing for memory, go and listen to it over and over and over again, okay? Put it in your car, put it on your MP3 player. Let's see. I listen to music a lot when I'm about to practice. I memorize faster. Very good, yes. So, my friend at music college has been giving listening to music as homework. That is excellent. Well, I appreciate that they do that, okay? So that's number one, listening. Now, what would you do next? Would you do muscle memory or would you do reading? What do you think? For you personally, which would you choose as your next layer of music learning? Would it be muscle memory or would it be reading the music? What do you think? I read the music as I listen, okay? That's coming from Nobody's Driving, who has rated him or herself a 10 out of 10 on memorization. Reading the music, okay? So once you've heard the music, then you pick up your score and you start reading along with it. I absolutely agree. That's a very good thing to do. Okay, so let's talk about additions. How do you know that the addition that you're reading off of is a good addition? Is there some method that you can use to tell this is a good addition? Yeah, I can use this one. It won't mess up my fingering. It won't mess up my bowing. How would you know? Okay, use the main ones, i.e. I don't know how to pronounce that, Baron-Tier, but Fisher definitely. I have never used that one. Fisher definitely have. So there are some standard additions that you're going to want to look for. And generally, if you're not sure, you should go contact somebody from wherever it is you're buying the music. If it's Shar music, if it's virtual sheet music, if it's a physical store, talk to somebody and ask them, well, what's a good edition? Now, there are some things to look for when you're looking at an edition. Number one is if there's the presence of fingerings and bowings already in the edition. Two is if they have other pieces that they've done editions for. So the big editors are generally pretty good because they do a lot of these. You could ask if you're in school, you could ask your teachers, your orchestra teachers, music teachers. Definitely ask though. Don't just go and find a random piece of sheet music that is that music and say, okay, this is good enough. Try to find a very good edition because the fingerings matter and the bowings matter. And those things, unfortunately or fortunately, will get stuck in your head. You memorize those as you're reading it and as you're listening to the music, okay? Yes, Peter's editions, also I agree, that's a very good one to use. I have plenty of those. So now that we've talked about the first two methods of memory, let's talk about that third one, the muscle memory. So tell me, how is it that you get a piece into your fingers? What is the process that you use to get a piece of music into your fingers? If you can verbalize it, then you can actually do it. And I think that holds true for a lot of the techniques that we do. You have to be able to explain how it is that you do it. Okay? Practice slowly, conscious playing, you practice a lot. I think Nelson Tran, I like the fact that you use the word slowly. This is one of the banes of musicians, is that they do not like to practice slowly. Okay? Do you guys agree? Do you guys like to practice slowly, or do you not like to practice slowly? And why? Tell me why. Tell me why you like to or why you don't like to practice slowly. Okay? It's true, you do need to practice every day. By the time you practice a lot, you know the piece by heart. My teacher has practice spots, okay? So end up practicing a lot, then the rest of the song comes together, very good. So you focus on those parts that are the most difficult. It lets you hone in on mistakes. It helps with intonation. My teacher said he heard the great violinists practice scales slowly and fast. Slow practice is for fast pieces and sections. Okay, so you guys are already fairly well educated on the fact that slow practice is absolutely necessary. And I hated it. As a kid, I hated practicing slowly because when I practiced, and I could get away with maybe half an hour of practice here and there, is because I had a very good ear, so I could pick up the piece very quickly. I could probably get to 80% of the piece within the first couple readings. But the problem is that extra 20% is what you really need to be able to perform it. And I was kind of lazy back then, and I just didn't want to do it. So my teacher would tell me, you got to practice slowly. And then the next week I come back and play a hard passage and screw it up, and they say, did you practice slowly? And I say, well, no. They said, well, go practice slowly. That was the thing that they would tell me over and over and over again. Okay, let's see what you guys are saying here. I first try to play it on the piano to have an idea of how it has to be played, and then try it on the violin. That's an interesting thought, Diego Ram. Some people do that. They will use a different, like if you have another primary instrument, you can do that. I don't think that's required. I think that listening to the music could replace that process. But certainly, if you're comfortable with the piano, that's a very good way to get your intonation good. Proper, I should say. Let's see, it's not as fun because you want to hear it all come together. That is absolutely true. And that was my problems. I always just wanted to hear the music come back out just like it was on the recording. The recording wasn't playing slowly, right? So why do I have to practice slowly, right? Nobody's driving. I think that when you are experienced enough, you can hear the notes in your head as you read the music anyway. I think that's true. So I'm starting off with this general conversation because I want to take all the pieces that we're discussing right now and push them all together into what I call my own personal memorization style. So you guys can take this for what it's worth. It may or may not help you, but this is how I practice and how I memorize. Okay, and you guys please ask questions as we're going, so that if there are points that I'm not covering very well, that I can take the time to do so. Okay, so number one, just as we discussed before. When I'm learning a piece of music, I go and grab headphones and I turn on my MP3 player and I listen to the song. I listen to it, I listen to it, I listen to it. I listen to it while I'm driving, I listen to it while I'm working, I listen to it while I'm just kind of chilling. I just listen to it a lot, and that helps already. Then the next thing I do is I pull up the music and I read through with it. I read along with it. And this is when I do it right. Oftentimes I'll kind of skip these steps and then regret it later. So if you don't want to regret it and have to unlearn stuff and relearn it, you just start by doing this way. So I've got the music in front of me, and I'll jot down notes. One of the things that I like to write down actually is the dynamics and the phrasing. So sometimes I'll actually write an emotion. You guys ever done this before? Any of you ever done this where you write down an emotion like, oh, this part is sad, or oh, the color just changed, or oh, this part really needs to be exciting, or stuff like that. Do you guys ever do that? Because if you don't, and you can tell me if you do or not, if you don't, grab a pencil next time you listen and try it. Just write down, this is soft, this is loud, this is medium, this is this sped up a little bit, this sounded really sad, right? Okay. Dynamics from the certain recordings you listen to, yes. So it may not agree with the edition that you have in front of you, because the editors are free to write whatever they want. Case in point, Bach sonatas and partitas. Have any of you ever played any Bach partita or sonata? And have you looked at the music? And have you looked at the editions or the originals that Bach wrote? I mean, it's all over the place. People will argue and argue and argue about how it was that Bach wanted it to be played. And it's still a never-ending conversation. So really, if you're listening to a recording and you like it, you should write down exactly what it is that you like about it, even if it conflicts with the edition, even if it's not what the editor wrote. Okay? So please keep that in mind. All right. So I'm listening. I'm writing down the little notes that I like, and then I also like. One of you pointed out that your teacher likes to take the passages that are most difficult and point those out. Now you do this. You take your pencil and you write like brackets around those measures, because you, as a player, know where your skill level is. Your teacher can kind of guess, like get a rough idea, but you're the one that ultimately knows which passages are hard for you and which are not. So if you write down which ones they are, then you can practice those, bring it to your teacher and say, hey teacher, these are the ones that I know I'm going to have trouble with. Please help me with them. And that way you're not wasting your time practicing something that the teacher thinks you have trouble with when you actually don't, and you're also practicing the ones that maybe the teacher didn't know you had trouble with that you're able to identify. Okay? So I hope that makes sense. It doesn't sound like rocket science. It's not like that big a deal, really. But it saves so much time if you just do it first before going to the teacher. You just do it yourself. It doesn't take very long. Your pieces, I don't know how long they are. Some of the longest concertos are maybe an hour long. But how much time does it really take in 1 week to sit down an hour a day, listen to the music, write things down, point out the things that you have trouble with, and then take it to your teacher? As a teacher, I would be thrilled if a student came to me with a marked up edition of music and said, here teacher, here's what I've listened to, and here are the spots I think I need help with. Can you help me? And I'd be like, yes, let's start. Okay, good. So we got that. Questions? Please write your questions. I am taking a look. Let's move on, and if we need to circle back based on your questions, I will. So now that I've got my music all written up and I've listened to it many times, now I've got to get to the point where I'm going to try playing it through. So you start off slow, and there's this little box that often beeps at you at a steady rhythm that really, really, really helps. And I hate it. I hate it. I pull my hair out, but I use it. It is called a metronome. If you do not have a metronome, please get one. For those of you who have metronomes, where did you buy them from? Where are you getting your metronomes from? I'm very curious. I have one on my phone. It's amazing. It's just such a different generation now where you can just get everything on your phone, right? So there are some free apps that can do it, and the metronomes are very good for those. So if you don't have either the money or the time to go and find a metronome, find an app on your phone. It shouldn't take more than 5 minutes to find one. Compare it also to like a clock or something that is steady, just to make sure that it is steady, because if somebody else writes the code for a metronome, better be sure that it's right, because if you're practicing with it and it's wrong, you're going to be all messed up. So make sure that it's good. We have a lot for iPhone, iPod, and that stuff. I have an old-fashioned wood one, which is my favorite. I also have one on my phone. Careful with garlic, you can get epic fever from that. I guess that's sort of a random comment. But yes, no, so definitely check to see what it is that you're using for a metronome, and then make sure that it is steady. And then how slow do you start? Okay, so let's say, for example, I got my violin here. Let's say, for example, that I'm practicing something that's already slow. How about one that came to my mind actually was that Schindler's List. You guys seen that video that I have? It goes, it just starts out. Right, so does that sound familiar? Yeah? And some of you may already know this piece, but it's already slow. So how slow should I be playing it? Should I be like, setting my metronome to go click, click, and then Is that the idea? Do I have to play it that slow? You think? Okay, 60% in playing speed. This is good, actually. You guys are going to start to probably disagree on this. Okay, 1 second, I'm just going to take a drink of water. So how slow should you play it? How do you know that you're playing it slow enough? This is an excellent question, I think, because how many people actually know the answer? We're about to find out. How do you know? When you're able to play it easily, okay, that's pretty good. Let's try to be very specific, though. What do you mean by playing it easily? As slow as you need, yes, but how slow is, how do you know how much you need? How do you know? Okay? Keep thinking about that. Maybe when you can play it on the first try, able to play without mistakes. So what does it mean to play with a mistake? Because there's not just the intonation that could be a mistake. It's not just the your bow that could be a mistake. How slow? I think that you guys are getting closer and closer. Okay, about half the speed. I have heard that when nobody's driving. I've been told by a teacher, a very well-known teacher, or at least I don't know how well-known she is, but she's very, very good. She told me half the speed. So I think that's a very good benchmark. But I want to be efficient. I don't want to just practice and move my bow along and not have it be as effective as what it could be. Like, for example, if I'm playing it like this, can you imagine how long it's going to take me to get through that song if that very first note is that long? But I tell myself, well, I want to make sure I don't make any mistakes, and I got to go really slow, so I probably should go that slow, right? Is there something else that you can use? Some other mechanism or some other sign that you can see of your own playing where you're like, oh, this is too slow? Where do you start? Okay, do it only on the trouble spots, but when you're learning the notes, you can practice different sections at different speeds. Okay, that is a very good point. Okay, so if we're going to be efficient, I don't want to just say, okay, here's the whole piece. I'm going to play the entire piece at one speed. Let me say that again. When you're first learning a piece, you don't want to play the whole thing one very slow speed. You don't. Why not? What's the problem with spending that much time playing the piece through very slowly the first time that you're learning it? Okay, it would take forever and waste time. Why is it a waste, though? Let's get to the specifics. Why is it wasting your time to do that? Inefficient. Okay, I practice hard parts more slowly. Yeah, I think you guys are getting to that. Let me see if I can verbalize what it is that the problem is for me. When you're learning something new, you need to solve the piece first, step by step. Okay, so when you're practicing, you guys practice scales, hopefully. Scales, arpeggios, etudes, all that kind of stuff. That is when you're building your technique. And so a lot of this stuff, including this opening of the Schindler's List, that's already covered in your slow practice of scales. You've already done that. So all you're doing is you're just being redundant. You're just doing the same thing again that you already did today that you don't need to do anymore, right? Why waste your time doing the same thing twice if one is good enough? And in this case, when you're practicing, as long as you're doing it slowly the first time on scales and stuff to warm up, you're warm. So if I already know how to play those notes, I don't need to spend the time doing it very slowly all the way through if a lot of it's already covered. So I go and look for the stuff that's not covered in the piece, things that I didn't practice during scales or didn't practice during other things, or things that I'm not familiar with, and allow the things that I am familiar with, I don't need to practice them that slow to begin with, right? Okay, so that's good. Let me just make sure I'm not missing anything here. Going back to why to play it slow. When most of the notes are clear, consistent, and you should record yourself at ooh, yes. Thank you very much, Cheese25277. Thank you very much for that comment. You should absolutely record yourself. And let me tell you, this Justin.tv thing that we're using, you can actually use it and broadcast yourself and then play it back. You don't even, you just need a webcam. That's all you need. If you don't even have any recording software whatsoever, you can even just use this free service, record yourself and listen back to it. It's that simple. It won't sound great because of the quality of the mic, like you can hear here, but you can at least see yourself playing, and you can hear kind of the general, if you make mistakes or the speed and all that stuff. That'll save you so much time if you know exactly how you sound versus just doing it without any record, okay? That's an excellent way. Should you always warm up before playing? Yes, you should. Now, I've done it both ways. I've done times where I just jump right into the piece and start playing. I've done it where I warm up. What do you guys think? Those of you who are a little bit more experienced in practicing and performing, why do you need to warm up? And this also goes with memory, by the way. This is another thing that we'll tie back into the memory discussion because we've kind of got off a little bit. We'll bring it back. Okay? Why do you need to warm up? Okay, so first, to get your fingers going, I see you're answering your own question. Yes, you need to get your fingers moving. Okay? But why else? Why else is it important to warm up? Because remember, we're talking about being efficient. We don't want to be wasting time. So why is it important to take the time to warm up? Okay, I always warm up with scales, arpeggios, dominants, diminished octaves, etc. Why? What does it do for you? What does playing scales and arpeggios and all that stuff, warming up? Why does it matter? Because I thought I'm trying to play a piece. Why would I practice the scale stuff if I'm not even going to play it in my concert? You need to remember the thirds, arpeggios, thirds, etc. because they're in the piece you're practicing. Ha! That's pretty good. Yes, they do appear in there. It helps you with your songs because normally it's in the key of the song, so I'm familiar with it. Okay, very good. So you've got the key, you've got the sharps and flats figured out. If I play the scales before, I play better after that to get your intonation solid. It gives my hands, fingers a feel for my violin, wakes up my muscle memory, and warms up my violin. Those are all very good points. So I played the Tchaikovsky Violin Concerto with an orchestra at BYU after I graduated. So I came back and played it. But before I went on stage, though, I wore gloves. I actually wore these gloves. I think the fingertips were open, but I wore them to keep my fingers warm. Literally, a warm-up actually physically puts heat into your hand. And that relaxes your fingers, your muscles, and allows them to bend. Now, if you haven't done that, and you try to play a really hard piece, guess what happens to your hand? Bad things. Very bad things. If you're not warming your hand up, it's kind of like taking something that's frozen and trying to bend it. It doesn't bend very well, and then when you bend it too far, right? So you can actually do damage to your fingers if you don't warm up. If you're trying to play things that your fingers are just not ready for yet. So that's a very important process just to keep your fingers from getting hurt, especially in extended periods of practice time or concerts in general. Okay. So yes, that is true. In any sport, you need to stretch out, right? So if you run a mile but you didn't stretch either before or after, next day you're basically walking around kind of funny because it hurts. So treat music like a sport in that way. Treat your hands well. Give them the chance to warm up. Now, that having been said, when you finally get to the Schindler's List playing and you have your violin up and you've already done your warm up, you don't need to do it anymore. Now you need to focus on using your time efficiently so that you can get that piece down. So for me, if I already know how it goes, and by listening to it, and I already have the basic idea of arpeggios and scales, I can just start right off and start thinking about. Here's another point. So with your memory, how often do you guys play? How often do you guys play what you planned to play? Let's see if I can rephrase that. So when I get into a concert and I'm playing something emotional, do I plan it out? This part's going to go like this. This part's going to go like this. I'm going to feel like this. I'm going to feel like this. That's how I'm going to do it. Do you guys plan it out? Do you do it like, okay, so this part's happy, so I'm going to play it kind of like this. Here's the sad part, I'm going to play like this. Yeah? Do you? That is a very important thing for muscle memory. Okay? So when we talk about muscle memory, oftentimes we just think about this muscle memory or this muscle memory. There's way more muscle memory than that. Okay? So let's make sure we understand what muscle memory is. So it's your fingers. They've done it a whole bunch of times, right? The same passage over and over again. Now, when you're playing, you don't have to think about it because your fingers already know where they're supposed to go. They've done it so many times. Okay? Like shooting a basketball into a hoop, for example. You do it over and over again, you become very familiar with it. Now, there are other parts of your body that need muscle memory training. Okay? So if you're playing something sad and you tend to, I don't know, you hold your violin a little bit lower so that physically you look like you're sadder. You got to practice it that way because if you're practicing like this all the time and then you go into the concert and you're sad and you're leaning over a little bit, everything changes. Your angle of your bow changes, the amount of gravity you've got going here and here. I mean, you got to practice it like that. Otherwise, you haven't practiced properly. Okay? So if you're going to be efficient, practice it the way you plan on performing it. Don't practice it in a different way. Don't get lazy and do it like this, and then in the concert suddenly change it. Okay? That makes a huge difference. let's see. I must be a robot. That's funny. I used to think that too, where I didn't show a lot of emotion.